Angry Karen threatens cops for parking in front of house. Hi there all. Today I come to you with a story that happened earlier this morning, and I've been chuckling at it for the majority of the day. Typing on mobile. So sorry for any incorrect spelling or grammar. Male, 6'3", 250 pounds. I work at a job that requires me to care for lawns. The way my work for my company operates is that I will pull up to a customer's house, usually in front of the lawn section. I will need to make sure that I am not blocking a fire hydrant or mailbox, as this is quite literally illegal and I would get into a massive amount of legal trouble even if I was sitting in front of them for less than a few minutes. 2. That I am not blocking the customer's driveway or neighbor's driveway. And 3. That the door to access my equipment is on the correct side, the right side, preferably away from the street. I am allowed only around 10 minutes for anything under 5,000 square feet in total area, and I usually have 25 plus stops in a day. Yes, this is as hectic as it sounds. Usually I start work around at 7 a.m. and don't finish until 4:30 or even 5 p.m. And the worst part is that my company is currently in its slow season, so being fast and efficient is crucial if you want to get home at a decent time. Haha. Usually this has the added effect of doing each stop as quickly as I can, since I know that if I don't walk fast enough and at the correct pace, I will slowly start to fall behind. To be clear, I walk, climb hilly terrain, climb stairs, and push a 20 to 40-pound seed spreader on just about every type of rough terrain you can think of, and this comes with the side effect of walking around 15 to 20 miles a day. How I wish this was an exaggeration. As I pulled my work truck into the cul-de-sac, I noticed that I had 2 stops almost right next to each other, on the same street and on the same side of the road. This is uncommon, but does happen from time to time, and is greatly appreciated because it means less driving throughout the day for me. The 2 houses were right next to each other, except for their neighbor, whose house looked smashed in between the 2 much larger homes. So, this meant that I wouldn't have to put my equipment up after I was finished with the first house and could instead directly move over to the other house, saving somewhere around 15 minutes of load and unload. The first house had a fire hydrant in front of it, and the other had a mailbox for the neighborhood. The Karen's house had nothing in front of it, and also conveniently had a gravel section where one could park a car off the street. However, because I've been in situations where customers don't like us using these grave patches, I just went ahead and parked next to it on the street itself. Fast forwards and I am heading from the first house to the other client's home after finishing up, and I see a small woman, maybe about 140 pounds, with a very annoyed expression on her face. I wasn't expecting anything from her and thought that she wanted to ask me a question about what I was doing to her neighbor's lawn. It happens a lot. But instead I was almost immediately yelled at for parking your truck in front of my house for the 3rd time, as well as comments such as, "How many times do I have to tell you B-word to not park here?" I've been working with this company for almost a year, and rarely outside of a few brief conversations, I've never had a problem with anyone, and if someone asked me to not park somewhere, I would make a note in the instructions and make sure that future techs didn't repeat the same mistakes. As well, sometimes people ask you to move out of the way or to a different spot because they are picky about parking spots and idling trucks on their lots. Again, this takes all of 5 seconds and isn't a big deal in the slightest. So, after taking in all her near non-sensual rambling and yelling, I simply replied, "Of course, that's not a problem, ma'am. I'll make a note in the instructions so this doesn't happen again. I'm sorry for the inconvenience." She replies, "Well, good. Make sure you don't park in front of my house anymore." After a few more back and forth of this where she is basically just saying, "Don't park here anymore," she walks away, and I think that's the end of it. At this point I can see that the other customer's yard is small, and I think that this yard will take me 5 minutes tops. This is where I messed up, I think, because she never asked me to move to a different place and only asked me to not park there next time. I figured I could go and crack out that lawn too, and thus went off to do exactly that. Because I was a bit behind in my schedule, I very stupidly thought that putting everything back in my truck, only to then take it out again, was unnecessary and I wouldn't be more than a few minutes, so it should be fine, right? After I was done with that lawn, a total of maybe 6 minutes tops, I came and loaded up my equipment, which only took about 30 seconds. Unload and refill takes significantly longer. I sat back in my truck and started to print out the receipts for the client's lawns, and as I am doing this, the Karen comes back up to me, this time on the phone with someone, and was visibly pissed. When I say she was angry, I am not joking either. She looked exactly what an over-aggressive chihuahua looks like when it's angry, and she was actually shaking from anger, I assume. She started to scream at me this time, though, which really caught me off guard because, again, I'm not on her property, only in front of it. Before she could start her ranting, I called out with my dumb smile, "Don't worry. I'm printing the receipts and then I'm leaving. Just give me 30 seconds. Redditors, this was not the correct thing to say. She rushed up to the side of my truck with a face that looked like she would murder me if given the chance. She started flying off the handle and screaming loudly, "No, you will move now. Not later. Not in a minute now. This is the third time I've talked to you about doing this, and I won't stand for it anymore. I shouldn't have to waste my precious time for a third time, just because an idiot like you can't pay attention." Me, very confused, just replied back, "I'm sorry, ma'am, that you've gone through that, but this is the first time I have ever been to your neighbor's house. You may have spoke with a different tech about dash." She cuts me off, shaking even harder somehow and screaming, "No, no. I don't care if this is your first time here. This is unacceptable. I don't pay for your service, and you shouldn't be parked in front of my house." At this point, I'm slowing cluing into her slight insanity, and I got out of my truck to go and deliver the receipts, which meant that I had to get closer to her as she was standing right next to my truck. She yelled at someone, who I assumed was a support person for my company or something, saying, "Oh my God." Sir, he got out of his truck and approached me aggressively. At this, I just rolled my eyes and quickly went to deliver the first receipt. Because I had to cross by her to get to the other house, I heard her once again screaming like a banshee about how, "You will not leave later. You'll leave now." As calmly as I could, I said, "Ma'am, please calm down. I'm just going to hang these receipts on the doors and then I'll leave. Look, you're so angry that you are literally shaking. Just calm down for a second and he'll leave immediately." She did not like this answer and went on about how I was being rude and aggressive with her, and then out of nowhere she tells me, "I will not calm down. How dare you? You are leaving right now, or I am calling the police." I sighed, hopped into my truck, still holding the other receipt, and turned it on to leave, all while she stared daggers at me, still shaking like crazy. I literally did not have the time for this. I'll admit that I was a little petty here. I looked her in the eyes, grinned my widest smile, waved to her and said, "Have a great day, ma'am," as sarcastically as I could, and then sped off. I hope you all enjoyed this small story of mine. It happened so quickly that I literally described it initially as sudden Karen whiplash. I never thought that this could happen to me, especially with how little I interact with customers. I was legitimately so baffled with what happened. It took me about an hour before I realized I had actually encountered a wild Karen. Now I can look back and chuckle at this, and it'll make for a good story in the future. Haha. P.S. I was listening to YouTube about entitled parents, just to add extra irony to the situation.